All right, so in today's lesson, we're looking at the customary units of measurement. So up to this point, you'd been working with metric, what the rest of the world uses. But here in the United States, we use the customary units. So, do you know what some of the names of the customary units are called? What do we call the customary units that we use here in the United States to measure length? So, stop the video and write down what you think our customary units of measurement are. All right, so now that you're back, I hope that you said inches, feet, and yards. So that's what we use here in the United States. We use inches, feet, and yards. Okay. So, what are some items that are about an inch in length or width? So, what are some items that you have at your house that are about an inch long? Now, if you have a ruler, please get a ruler and go around your home and measure some items that are about an inch. Okay, so stop the recording and see if you can find some items that are about an inch in length at your house. Okay, so what did you find? If you want to share some of this stuff with me, you can always make a video and send it to me, or you can make a seesaw video and send it to me. So some of the stuff is interactive, but it's kind of hard to be interactive when we're doing video. But some of the stuff that I found at my house that were about an inch was a quarter, my thumb, and there's some other stuff, but those are just some examples of things that are about an inch. Okay. And I'm going to show you in just a second. So give me a second and I will show you those items. Okay, well, I'll show you in a little bit because it looks like I can't change the view of my camera right now, but I'll do it in just a second. I'll go through all of these inches, feet, and yards, and then I'll show it to you guys, okay? All right, so what are some things in your house that are about 1 foot long or 1 foot wide? So go ahead and pause the video, and if you have a ruler, that's great because you can use that. But if you don't have a ruler, and if you have your school Chromebook, so your school Chromebook is about a foot long from one side to the next. So your Chromebook is about a foot long. So if you have that, you can use that as a gauge. If not, I'll show you my ruler in just a second. So go around your house and see if you can find items that are about a foot long. Pause the video, write the items down, or take pictures of the items that you find and you can send them to me, okay? Or you can capture them in Seesaw when you're done. But find the items that are about a foot long and then come back to me, okay? So pause the video and then come back. Okay, now that you're back, what I found to be in my house that are things that are about a foot long, a box of tissue, a cereal box, and actually a foot. My foot is not quite a foot, but funny little story that the foot actually is called a foot because the measurement comes from, I believe it was a king of England sometime way back, way back when, that he used his foot to measure items, and then someone else, he told him that he needed X amount of feet of something, but his foot obviously wasn't the same size as someone else's, so the foot wasn't so they got less than they needed because his foot, I can't remember the complete story, but anyways, it came about that we needed a standard measurement of unit, and so the 12 inches or the foot came about because of that. Kind of interesting. Okay, so a yard. So what are some items in your house that are about 1 yard long or wide? So a yard is 3 rulers or 36 inches. So that's quite a bit. Some of you are probably right above a yard in height. Well, you're probably a little bit more than a yard, but some of you are way more than that. But anyway, see if you can find some stuff around your house that are a yard. So that's like 3 rulers wide or long, and then come back to the video. Okay, so if we were at school, you would see that our desk, probably a little bit under a yard. but a window, maybe a window at your house, maybe a picture at your house is about a yard. So right now I'm going to stop and I'm going to show you some of the stuff that I found, okay? Okay, so here's my ruler. And notice it's 12 inches. And here's my inch. And notice my quarter is about an inch long, or across. My thumb, trying to see if I can do this. My thumb, not quite an inch, but it just depends on the size of the width of your thumb, but about that. Okay, and here is a foot. So notice our math book from school, it's about more like 11 inches, not quite a foot, but close. Okay, here's my box of cereal. And my box of cereal, let me try to put that there. My box of cereal, not quite an inch, about 10.5 inches, but kind of close. Okay, and here's my yardstick. I'm measuring it across my office window here. So my window is a little bit bigger than a yard, but about a yard. Okay, notice, so here is my yardstick. Okay, it's 36 inches, so it's basically, it's 3 of these rulers. So if I were to align 3 of these rulers, then you would see that I would get my 36 inches. And notice if I put it up against the chair here, the chair is more than a yard, but it just depends on your positioning of it. If I put it against me, you see it's around my waist. So it just depends on how tall you are. But so you can see that is 36 inches or a yard. Okay, so now we're going to look at converting measurements because sometimes we might need to convert some of our measurements. Okay, so one way to remember how to convert, if you have a larger unit to a smaller unit, you multiply. So I've highlighted the first letter of each of them, larger to smaller, multiply. You can remember lions share meatballs. Or you can think of your own little saying that'll help you, okay? So lions share meatballs. When you're going from larger to smaller, we multiply. If we're going from smaller unit to a larger unit, you divide. So the S in smaller, snakes, larger like donuts. Snakes like donuts. Okay, if we're going from a smaller unit to a larger unit, we divide. Snakes like donuts. Remember that when we are converting the units, we're not changing the length, okay? The length stays the same. The only thing we're changing is how we describe it. So in my last example, when I showed you my cereal box, that was about 1 foot long or about 12 inches. The length of the box the height of the box did not change. The only thing that changed was the way I'm describing it, okay? So the length is not changing, just the way we're describing it. And so this is one way to do it, and there's also other ways to do it, my little songs that I have. So in a moment, we're going to do a little song to help us remember that when we go from larger to a smaller unit, we multiply. And then when we go from a smaller unit to a larger unit, we divide. Because, I have to have my little songs. So I'm going to play that next. Okay, so get ready for our little movements in our song, because you know me, I have to have my little movements in song. And yes, you have to do it with me. Because remember, you always say we do little silly things, but they always help us remember, okay? So I found this video on YouTube, but I can't share like the whole thing and it won't record the song. So unfortunately, you're going to have to hear me. And once you get the hang of it, do it with me. You're going to see that she's going to be doing some movements for what you do when you go from bigger to a smaller form of measurement. If you're going from a bigger measurement like yards to feet, we're going from bigger to smaller. We multiply, and you're going to see her little movements that she does. And then you're also going to see the movements that are done when we divide. Okay, so are you ready? I'm going to play it and I'm going to sing it for you, and I want you to do it with me. Ready? Bigger to smaller, multiply. Smaller to bigger, you must divide. Bigger to smaller, multiply. Smaller to bigger, you must divide. Bigger to smaller, multiply. Smaller to bigger, you must divide. Bigger to smaller, multiply. Smaller to bigger, you must divide. Okay, and I'm going to go back a little bit here because I want you to notice what she was doing. She took her arms from, let's see, I'm trying to find the right spot here. She went from divide. If you're going from smaller to bigger, you must divide. And notice where she had her hands, she went from smaller. See, this is a smaller. And now she's putting her hands out. You must divide. Notice here how it looks like almost like a division thing with a little bar here and the little dot for the rest of her body. So that's the divide. And notice what she does when she's doing the multiplying one. So bigger to smaller. So her hands went from the out position to smaller. And notice that she is going to be crossing them to multiply. So you're going out with your hands from the out position because you're going from a bigger number to a smaller number. Then her hands came in, and then she did the multiplication symbol. Okay, so remember, bigger to smaller, multiply, put your hands out, and then bring them in, and then cross them over. So bigger to smaller, multiply. And then remember that bigger, so your hands are out. Oh, I think we just did that one, didn't we? Oh, well, let's do it again. Bigger, hands out, to smaller, you multiply. And then divide, you go from smaller. So smaller, she went from, oh, I passed it up. She went from her hands being in as small and then going out to divide. So you start with the smaller, your hands are closer together. And then if you're going from a smaller number to a bigger number, your hands go out. So you are dividing, you're making a division symbol. Okay, so play this over again several times. I think it'll help. And again, sorry for my singing, but there you go. Okay, now that we have our song, now we're going to look at the customary units of length and what they're equivalent to. So 1 foot, or abbreviated FT period, is equal to 12 inches. IN period, inches, okay, in parentheses. So I'm just putting the parentheses so you can see the abbreviations, okay? 1 yard, so 1 foot was our ruler, which is equal to 12 inches. 1 yard, which was our yardstick, is equal to 3 feet, okay, or 3 rulers, 3 feet, which is the same thing as 36 inches, okay? A mile, we haven't talked about a mile, but a mile is equal to 1,760 yards, which is equal to 5,280 feet. Okay, so that's our mile. So you might want to stop the video right now and write these down, because you will need these to do some of these problems that we're going to be doing. So please write down that 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. Write down that 1 yard is equal to 3 feet, which is equal to 36 inches. And then write down that 1 mile is equal to 1,760 yards, which is equal to 5,280 feet. So stop the video and write those down, please. Okay, let's look at our first problem. If you know that a lawn is 15 yards long, how can you find its length in feet? So stop the video for a moment and stop and think about this, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so what do we need to do? So if you said multiply, you would be correct because we're going from a larger unit, yards, there's more, yards is longer, and we're going to feet, which is smaller. So remember, larger to smaller, multiply, larger to smaller, multiply. So we must multiply. Okay, and how do we know? Because we're going from a larger to smaller, multiply, larger to smaller, multiply. Okay, and if we were to solve that, we'd get the 15 yards times 3, because there's 3 feet in 1 yard. So I need to do 15 times 3, because 3 of the rulers, remember, equals 1 yard. So 15 times 3 is 45. So my answer would be 45 feet. And so remember, it's not more, it is the same. 15 yards is equal to 45 feet. It's the same distance. Okay, let's look at our next one. Okay, here's our next problem. If you know that a stick is 48 inches long, how can you find its length in feet? So stop the video for a moment and see if you can figure out what would we need to do, multiply or divide. You know, we have to do one or the other, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, if you said divide, then you are correct. And why do you divide? Well, because we're going from inches, which is a smaller unit, to a larger unit. A smaller to larger, you must divide. Smaller to larger, you must divide. Smaller to larger, you must divide. And now let's solve it. Okay, to solve it, we take our 48 and we divide it by 12. And that's going to give me 4 feet because there is 12 inches in 1 foot. Okay, let's look at the next problem. Okay, so now you're going to try some on your own. So remember, if you're going from a larger unit to a smaller unit, you must multiply. Larger to smaller, multiply. Larger to smaller, multiply. If you're going from a smaller to a larger, you must divide. Smaller to larger, you must divide. And look back at your notes where we wrote down what our conversions were. So you should have written down that 1 foot is 12 inches, 1 yard is 3 feet or 36 inches, 1 mile is 1,760 yards or 5,280 feet. That's going to help you solve these problems. Okay, so the first one says 24 inches equals how many feet? So inches is smaller, so I'm going from smaller to larger. I must divide. Smaller to larger, gotta divide. So let's do that one. Pause the video and do that one. So my equation is going to be 24 divided by 12, because there's 12 inches in a foot. So 24 divided by 12 is 2. So my answer is 2 feet. Okay, so let's do the next one. 12 feet equals how many inches? So you're going from feet to inches. So you're going from a larger to smaller. So you must do what? If you said multiply, you're right. So go ahead and do that one. And then, so pause the video and do that one. Okay, so that's going to be our 12 feet times 12 inches in a foot. 12 inches in a foot, so it's 12 times 12, which is 144. Okay, now we're going from yards. Don't let this fool you, but it's still the same thing. The equal, the needing the answer on the other side, it's still the same thing. So we're going from yards to feet. So yards to feet, do you need to multiply or do you need to divide? So yard to a foot. So yard is our larger unit. So we're going larger to smaller. You must multiply. Larger to smaller, multiply. So go ahead and do that one and then come back to me. Pause your video and solve that one. Okay, so your 6 yards, there's 3 feet in 1 yard, so it's 6 times 3. So 6 times 3 is 18. So there's 18 feet in 6 yards. Okay, let's do the next one. Miles to yards. So I'm going from miles to yards. So do I need to multiply or divide? So I'm going from miles, which is a larger unit, to a smaller unit. So we multiply. Larger to smaller, multiply. So go ahead and see how many yards are in a mile and then multiply and then come back to check your answer. So I see that there is 1,760 yards in 1 mile. So then I got to multiply 1,760 times 3. So if you haven't done that, go ahead and do that. Pause the video and then we'll get to the answer. So 0 times 3 is 0. 6 times 3 is 18. Put my 8 down. Carry my 1. 7 times 3 is 21. Plus 1 is 22. Put my 2 down. Carry my 2. 3 times 1 is 3. Plus 2 is 5. So my answer is 5,280 yards in 3 miles. Okay, the next one. We have 144 inches equals how many yards? So we're going inches to yard. So look at your chart from inches to yard. Are we getting bigger or smaller? We're going from an inch to a yard. So smaller to larger, you must divide. Smaller to larger, you must divide. So see how many inches are in a yard and go ahead and divide, and then we'll come back to me and check your answer. So pause your video. Okay, so I wrote 144 divided by 36 because there's 36 inches in a yard. So now I'm going to say, 36, I'm going to ignore my 6, I'm going to look at the 3. 3 goes into 14. How many times without going over? Well, 3 times 4 is 12, so I'm going to try that. So I multiplied 36 times 4. 6 times 4 is 24. Carry my 2. 3 times 4 is 12. Plus 2 is 14. Oh, look, exactly 144. So I went in 4 times minus 144. And then that's going to give me 0, 0, 0. So my answer is 4 yards. Okay, let's look at the bottom one. Calculate the perimeter of the figure. It says of each figure. I took one of the figures out. So we're going to do one figure in feet. Notice it's asking me for feet. So let's look at it. Okay, so I want it in feet. And to remember, perimeter, do you remember what perimeter means? Okay, so if you said how much something is the measurement around something, then you would be right. Okay, and I want it in feet. Notice this one's 5 feet and 4 feet, but this is 36 inches. So, can I add those up? Well, if you said yes, you would be wrong. If you said no, I can add them up because they're in different units. I can add the 5 feet and the 4 feet, okay? I can add those two together, but I cannot add the 36 inches because this is in inches. So I need to convert this 2 feet. Okay, so I'm going from inches to feet. So I'm going from a smaller unit to a larger unit. So you must do what? If you said smaller to larger, you must divide, then you would be correct. So let's do that. So let's do 36 divided by how many inches are in a foot? Yes, 12 inches are in a foot. You are correct. So 12 times what is 36? 12 times 1 is 12. 12 times 2 is 24. So I think it's 3. 12 times 3. If I'm not sure, I'm going to write it out. I'm going to work it out. Some of you don't need to work it out because you know your multiplication facts. But if you don't, work it out with me. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 1 is 3, 36. So that is correct. So now that I've gotten my 3 feet, now I can go ahead and add that. So let me go ahead and do that. So I'm going to do 5 plus 4 plus 3. 5 and a 4 makes 9. And then I have 9 plus 3, 9, 10, 11, 12. So my answer is 12 feet. Okay. All right, then we're gonna start some word problems. So let's get ready for those.